fantasy football. Lucky for you, you are right where you need to be. So sit back, relax, and turn up the volume on your streaming device. Johnny Ballgame, Sir Poops-a-Lot, and the Fantasy Reaper are about to deliver humor and fantasy gold at the same time. Crush your opponent with a smile. It's Fantasy Sports Island.
Welcome back, Fantasy Sports Island.
Let's go.
What is going on? It is just the two of us on the island today.
Yes, the two of us.
Johnny
Talk about
Ballgame.
just the two of us. Oh, that's different music than what's playing right now.
Johnny Ballgame. How you doing, brother?
Sup, yo? I'm doing fan-freaking-tastic, Chuck. Fantastic. How you doing tonight, man?
I've been better. I'm a little tired, but I'm still here, John.
What you sound like. That's what you sound like. I'm tired.
You know what, though, John?
What?
Fantasy Reaper is still here.
Gamer. He's a gamer. He grinds.
Every week, John. Every week. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Island. This is the show where we help you win your fantasy football league. It's that simple. We are the inventors of PPR. You're welcome. John, how many years of experience do you have in fantasy football?
So many that my beard is white. That's a lot. That's
More
a lot
than
of
25, John.
Oh.
More than 25.
Yeah. Put it this way, Chuck. When we started this, we were youngsters. We had no commitments in life. We basically just were. We just existed. And now look at us.
We drafted Jim Brown with our first pick. That's how long we
Roger Staubach really paid off for me on my PPR league that year.
And the reason why I bring that up, John, is because we're going to dip into our minds, our past, and find some of our favorite fantasy football legends tonight. Should be fun. That will be our final segment. So if you like fantasy football legends, this is the show for you, John.
Bing bong.
Bing bong. All right, Johnny Ballgame can be found on Twitter at JohnIsbell85.
At me. I dare you. At me.
At him. I am the Fantasy Reaper, Chuck Bishop, and you can catch me at the Fantasy Reaper on Twitter as well, and you can at me too if you must. All right, so welcome to Fantasy Sports Island. If you are new, welcome to the show. We do this every week for 1 hour. Sit back, have a pina colada, enjoy yourself, and tonight's show should be a good one, John. We're going to do our news and notes. We're going to do our top 5 prospect rankings at the quarterback position.
Yes, sir.
That should be good.
Yep.
And then we're going to finish up with some fantasy legends like I teased just a few minutes ago. So if you're ready to go, shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
All right, John. First bit of news. Kansas City Chiefs signed. I'm Rich James, bitch. Richie James to a 1-year deal. What do we think, John?
Meh. I mean, let's face it. This time of year, we're a couple weeks out of the draft. Gets a little slow. This isn't news in other times of the year. It's Richie James. He did okay. He's going to be a special teams guy.
Actually, I mean, he did okay for the Giants. He had a couple flash games. But with Patrick Mahomes, I feel like he could make something out of him. I mean, they're a little devoid of weaponry at the wide receiver position.
I feel like you're saying that Daniel Jones is not as good as Patrick Mahomes. Is that what I heard? Was that your hot take? Was that your hot take, Chuck?
That's about as hot as it gets on this show, John.
Yeah, so you might be right. And he was a kind of a little bit of a flash player last year, like you said. So yeah, let's put him on a talented offense with talented people. I mean, let's see.
I don't think he could do worse than Juju Smith-Schuster. We'll see. They got him a lot cheaper.
Yeah. It's worth the risk. I mean, worst comes to worst, they've got a good special teams player.
All right. Wide receiver Odell Beckham has finally found a team, John. It's been almost a year since he's been trying to get signed by somebody, and he ends up on the Baltimore Ravens on a 1-year, $15 million guaranteed deal. within a chance for incentives to make it up to $18 million. This has got to be one of the most ridiculous contracts I've ever seen for a guy that hasn't played since the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
And wasn't healthy enough late last year for a team to sign him to make a Super Bowl run.
Exactly. I mean, the guy is coming off his second torn ACL, not first, second torn ACL. He is now in his 30s. He's not a young cat. And we're going to just pay him one of the high. He's going to be one of the highest paid players in the NFL this season, John, at wide receiver.
Let's not forget, we don't know who's throwing him the ball even. We don't know who the quarterback is.
I do, John. I do. Because if they did this, they're doing it for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was begging for Odell. If they're going to do this and give him $15 million, that tells me that he's going nowhere. Lamar's going to be with the Ravens.
I mean, he kind of has to. He's signed he's got a franchise tag, so if he's going to play anywhere, he's going to play there if they can't make a deal for him. So
exactly. Okay, let's talk about the Bengals. Running back Joe Mixon is back in the news because he's been recharged with misdemeanor aggravating menacing. That's what they call it. I mean, I don't know what that means, but it sounds really bad.
I'm no legal expert, but good.
Well, here's basically what happened. They dropped the charges a couple weeks ago, and so we thought this was done. But they have new evidence that made them decide to reopen the case and recharge him with this. And it's the highest for a misdemeanor that they can go. They're seeking, the maximum penalty. I mean, it's Joe Mixon. He's probably not going to serve any jail time anyways because it's still a misdemeanor. But I mean, this is not good. If you're a Bengals fan and you like Joe Mixon, I say there's about an 80% chance that he's not going to be a Bengal when this is all said and done, John. What do we think?
Just because he doesn't do jail time doesn't mean the NFL isn't going to suspend him, right? I mean, this is menacing of a female. This ain't good, Bengals fans. This is something we got to think about. If I'm the Bengals, I make a move, I make a splash in the draft, and I go get me a little by God Bijan. You know what I mean? Like, let's go finish this thing. Let's put the last piece in place and go win us a Super Bowl, Bengals fans. Who's with me?
I mean, I wrote this down, John, because I was thinking the same thing. The Bengals have the 28th overall pick. That is right around the area where teams will start considering taking the best running back in the draft in Bijan Robinson. And I mean, even if the Bengals decide not to do that, they're going to get a running back in the middle, like the second day of draft in the round 3-4 range. They're going to get somebody, John. And I think that is going to signal the end of Joe Mixon. Let's not forget Ezekiel Elliott's still out there. He wants to be a Bengal. They could do that route as well.
Let's push for mediocrity. That's a good idea. I just gave the speech for making a move up to get Bijan, and you're like, Ezekiel Elliott's out there too. Let's take a chance, Chuck. Let's be a little bit more aggressive.
I would love nothing more than Bijan to end up as a Bengal. That would be fantastic.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the fun that team would be for at least a year until they couldn't afford to re-sign anybody? You better win the Super Bowl, though. But a guy like that talent on a rookie deal, you get him for 4 or 5 years. Hello. Thanks for coming. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Amazing. Okay. The Detroit Lions traded cornerback Jeff Okudah to the Falcons.
Yeah.
And he was their third overall pick a few years back, so I think they're saying he's kind of a bust. But they got a 2023 fifth-round pick. Not a big deal, but after I saw this, I'm like, damn, the Lions seem like they have a lot of picks. And they do. They have 9 picks in this draft. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, 2 fifths, and 2 sixths. That's a lot of draft capital, John. Are we looking at a team about to build a dynasty? Yeah.
This reminds me of Dallas when they got all those draft picks. This is how you do this, right? Like, the Lions are suddenly not the laughingstock of the NFL. They've got a team that people believe in. Their fan base is regenerated. They've got a team that's actually pretty good now, and they've got a bajillion draft picks. I think we are looking at the beginning of they're going to rule the Central for a while, and that's hard for me. Or the North for a while, which is hard for me to say as a Bears fan. I think the Lions are the best team in the North.
And don't be shocked if they also go out and grab another wide receiver in the draft to pair with Jameson Williams. And to pair with Amon St. Brown. and don't forget they got the old man Jones back from his old days. Marvin Jones.
Marvin. Yes, sir. Yeah.
He's actually not that old, John. I mean, he's probably 31. He's not as old as we think.
Seriously, I know. He does seem like he's been around for like 1,000 years, though.
He's been in the league for like 10 years. He started with the Bengals, but he was so young when he started it. He's really not that old, and he's a veteran kind of guy. He's going to help that team.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the Lions.
I am too. Even Goff. Like, I'm not even going, yeah, but they got Goff. Goff looked good last year. Goff is a system quarterback, and he's got a system that works. He's been to a Super Bowl also, everybody. So, yeah.
He has. A lot of fantasy options on this team. This thing is very exciting. Even DeAndre Swift. I mean, he's got it. I don't think he's going to get the bulk of the carries there, but he's got to do better than he did last year. I feel like in the right role, he could be like Alvin Kamara was for the Saints a few years back.
Yeah. Monty's going to take some steals. He's going to take the goal line share, just like last year. And I kind of like him now. I wasn't sure if I was going to like him, but I'm kind of digging it. I'm digging what they're doing there. So I'd like him to shore up the offensive line just a wee. Although, I mean, look at all the many ground touchdowns they scored last year. So I think, this is going to be a good team, man. It's a good team.
It really is. The culture has changed, John. The culture has changed. I teased it earlier. We're going to start with this. We're going to talk about our top 5 prospects at the quarterback position coming into the NFL. We did the wide receivers last week. We did the running backs the week before. It's time for the quarterbacks. And we're only going to do 5 because these are the 5 that are definitely going to be drafted in the first couple rounds of the NFL draft and could be fantasy relevant this season. So let's go over those, John, if you're ready. I know you're dying to talk about the quarterbacks. Would you rather start at 1 and move down to 5, or would you go 5 to 1?
5 up.
He likes to start with the weakest to the best. All right, let's start at 5. And my number 5, John, is Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. What people don't realize about Hendon Hooker is he's actually older already than guys like Trevor Lawrence and guys that we've seen in the NFL for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, he's 25.
He's 25. He'll be 26 going into the season.
No. He will be 25 as a rookie. Actually, he's 24 he'll be 25 as a rookie.
Okay. So he's going to be 25 years old already, which is part of the reason that he's not as highly touted as some of the other prospects. And another reason is he's coming off a torn ACL.
Yeah.
And we're not sure when he'll be ready for play at all this year. So I think a good landing spot for him would be a team where he can sit a year and watch a veteran quarterback such as Tennessee Titans, like behind Ryan Tannehill or something of that nature.
That'd be an interesting landing spot.
It would be an interesting landing spot. But let's talk about his strengths and weaknesses. I'll let you go. You've seen him play. You tell me what you like, don't like about him.
Love his running ability. Here's what he reminds me of. So my red flag on him is he had a torn ACL in November, right? So like you said, perfect spot is somewhere later in the draft, in the first round, someone who's got a good quarterback, a good enough quarterback to hang on for a while. I like that he's been in college for a long time, so that's a plus. And while he didn't start all those years, he's just got all that experience. I think he started like the last 2 or 3 years, but really good runner, big arm, really good playmaker. So those are the pluses. He sometimes forces things, so he can be turnover prone, and defenses can confuse him. And Tennessee's offense, frankly, was a little bit gimmicky. So you haven't seen him really in a pro set. So those are a little bit of some red flags for me.
He did complete 70% of his passes last season.
Mm-hmm.
3,135 yards, 27 touchdowns, 2 picks. Also added 430 yards on the ground with 5 more touchdowns.
Yes, sir.
He is a dual threat, and that's what we like about him. I don't know if what he did at Tennessee would translate in the NFL because of the different coverages he's going to face, zone reads, and etc. Can he handle all that? What do you think, John?
He's really smart. Like, Tennessee manages to get these dang quarterbacks who are like actual rocket scientists. You remember Dobbs? You met this guy as an All-American. I think he's a master's candidate right now. So he's really smart. So I'm not worried about that piece of it. But he just hasn't seen a ton of it. Actually, that's not true. He's seen really high caliber defenses. Like, he's played Alabama. He's played the SEC. So he's played really good defenses. Georgia's defense. My issue is Tennessee doesn't run a standard pro offense. It's just real, like, run and shoot kind of gimmicky kind of stuff.
Air raid offense.
Yeah, and I don't know how well. We've not seen many run and shoot air raid type quarterbacks do really well in the NFL. I think of the Andre Wares of old school days, like David Klingler, people like that. I know I'm pulling out some old names, but I'm old, so screw you guys. But I really think he's got the raw talent, and if he gets to sit behind somebody for a year or two, I honestly think he can make a difference in the NFL for somebody because he's got an arm. God, he's got an arm.
He does have an arm. He's a big guy, too, and he can take some punishment back there. But the offense he ran in college, he had all predetermined throws. Like, he was told, you're going to throw to this guy, the X receiver, this E on this play. And so he didn't really learn how to do, like, progressions like an NFL quarterback where you got to read the defense, go through your progressions, and hit the open man. So that's going to take some time. It's not something you pick up right away. But the fact that he is older and has more experience than the other guys gives him a little bit of a leg up as far as his knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a little bit more wise and mature. So bigger guy, stronger than some of the other quarterbacks, so he can take a pounding.
But still mobile.
He stands in the pocket. He'll take a hit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of positives about Hendon Hooker, and he's a winner. Tennessee won a lot of games under Hendon Hooker.
Sure did. When they hadn't been winning for many years. Like, he kind of brought that winning spirit back.
That's right. And he didn't have any, like, NFL talent type wide receivers to throw the ball to. He's spreading the ball out to secondary talent. He doesn't have the guys that are other quarterbacks in the top 5 we're going to talk about. Some of the, like, the top 2 or 3, they had NFL caliber weapons on their team to throw to. And Hendon Hooker didn't have that. So it's hard to evaluate if he had that kind of talent. What could he do with that, right?
Yeah, right. I'm with you, buddy. Yep.
All right. So Hendon Hooker, let's think about some teams. Where can he end up, John? Like, first of all, Tennessee was my first thought. But let's go through the draft and find out a spot besides Tennessee that we think he could land. All right?
Here's a place I think he would look good in. Detroit.
Perfect place to go, John.
Let's let him sit behind Goff. Goff's got a couple of years in him. Goff's got command of the offense. Heal up, get better, work with a ridiculous group of receivers. I really like that spot for him.
That is fantastic, John. That's a perfect landing spot for a guy like Hendon Hooker on a strong offense with talented weaponry, and he can just learn. He can learn from a guy that's done it for several years in golf. I like the Raiders as another possible destination, sitting one year behind Garoppolo.
Yeah, I'm okay with the Raiders. For some reason, you know who else I like? I like Vikings.
Perfect. Right behind Cousins for a year. And Cousins will be gone after 1 year.
Yeah, Cousins has a year. Let him heal up and learn, and then have those offensive weapons at his disposal. Daddy like.
How about the Saints? You got 1 year with Carr, but possibly maybe 2. You sit behind Carr, learn that offense.
Yeah, Carr got a 3-year deal, but probably only like 2 guaranteed.
Yeah, the third year, that cap hit would be low. They could cut him.
Yeah.
How about the Seattle Seahawks? Geno Smith's
Here's my struggle with Seattle is I don't know if I believe in Geno as much as I believe in the other quarterbacks keeping their jobs for another year. Geno is a flash in the pan, has never, ever showed us that. And he could be one of those one-hit wonders. And so if I'm drafting a quarterback and I'm them, I probably make a move for one of the top three so that if I've got to play him, to me, Hooker is a project. Hooker is somebody you're definitely not starting this year. You're going to start him next year because just physically, you don't know if he's going to be ready.
Okay, so we're talking back into the first is where I personally expect Hendon Hooker to go. I'm looking at some of the teams. The Chiefs don't need a quarterback. The Eagles aren't going to do that. I mean, the Saints, they have the San Francisco pick at number 29. I feel like that's a very reasonable place for him to go. Maybe the Giants, if the Danny Dimes experiment comes to an end.
That's not a bad one right there.
And you mentioned the Vikings. I think that's a really good spot. So those are the teams we're going to be looking at the end of the first.
So we also know the Giants coach, Daboll, did wonderful things with our boy up in Buffalo. So he might be a really good coach for Hendon Hooker.
I agree. Yeah. All right. That was our number 5. Now, my number 4, I debated between Hooker and this guy for the 4-5 spot because I'm not really sure I really like this guy. But he's got a freaking cannon, and that's Will Levis out of Kentucky. I want to call him Levi's because that's the way he spells his name, but it's Will Levis. Cannon arm, John. He can sling it, but I compare him to Jay Cutler because his mind isn't all there. He's mistake prone. He misses his reads. He panics in the pocket. These are all things that are negatives for me. For Will, but you tell me what you think, what you like and don't like about Will.
I love his cannon. I love that arm. I like his confidence, man. I really like that guy knows he could step in tomorrow and win games. He's going to be a winner. And he did a lot with a lot less. Now, he battled turf toe last year, so he wasn't quite as good as he was. But the year before when he played with an NFL offensive coordinator, that guy scored high and scored a lot. So scored high as far as like PFF grades and stuff like that. I like Will Levis. I actually have him as my 3rd. So you've got him at your 4th. I have him as my 3rd.
All right. So my take on Will Levis is he's like a tremendously powerful thrower. He can throw on the run. He can,
And he can run.
And he can run, exactly.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a lot of touch. Okay.
Yeah.
And he has to. If I feel like the pocket has to be clean for him to set his feet properly and get a good throw off. And if the pocket starts to break down, I think he panics a lot, and that's when he throws interceptions, which he did throw a lot of last year and the year before, as a matter of fact. They got to play to his strengths wherever he's drafted. So you got to find a team that's very structured because, like I said, he's a loose cannon. So you're going to have to tame him a little bit, settle him down. A guy like Brian Daboll would be perfect for this guy, right? Like Josh Allen.
Because he's like Josh Allen. When Josh Allen came out, cannon for an arm, good runner, crap ton of mistakes, cocky as hell. To me, that's why I like him, and that's why he's my 3rd on my quarterback list, because I think he's Josh Allen waiting to happen, and with the right offensive coordinator, they're going to figure him out, and I'm telling you, he may end up being the most successful quarterback out of this group.
Some of my other notes, he takes a lot of sacks, John, which is not a good thing. And in pressure situations, he made a lot of bad mistakes that cost them games. So that's more things. But tremendous arm size, athleticism, toughness.
One of the things, though, about taking all those sacks and the mistakes, again, horrible turf toe last year, but he's playing in Kentucky in the SEC. They just don't have that talent. He was getting bombarded by these defenses. So, I mean, the fact that he had as good a grade as he did the year before when he wasn't injured is more a testament to his ability to escape, make plays on the run while running for his life. So I'm not as worried about the mistakes and getting sacked because I think he just got the shit kicked out of him with a subpar offensive line. And you talk about not having any stars to throw to, that guy way less than even what's his face did that we just talked about. So, yeah, Yeah, so I think I love him. I actually think he's going to be really good.
Okay. Do we think he's going to end up in the first round, John?
Oh, yeah. Before Hooker.
You
He'll
think
get
so?
drafted before Hooker. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking down. Let's look at some teams that need quarterbacks. Obviously, like at the top of the draft, the Panthers aren't taking them, and the Texans aren't taking them.
No.
Cardinals don't need a quarterback.
Seattle?
The Colts are the first team at 4 that I think could go for a guy like Will Levis, although I personally think that's too early. Do we think the Colts would entertain that?
Colts might consider trading down if they think somebody else needs like a tackle or somebody that they might want to get up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's a horrible pick. I mean, there's a lot of people that think that guy's going to go in the top 10. And so if the Colts really think that's his guy and they're at 4, you take your guy. Like everybody knows, you got to build around a franchise quarterback. And if you think he could be your franchise quarterback, like I believe in him way more than I do Anthony Richardson, which I know is your number 3 guy. I would build around Will before I would build around Anthony Richardson.
Okay, we'll get to the reasons why when we start talking about Anthony Richardson, but some landing spots that I kind of like for Will Levis. The Falcons are sitting there at 8. They took Desmond Ridder last year. Are they sold on him? Because if they're not, would they take a chance on this guy?
Maybe. They might take somebody like a Hooker or a Richardson because they like that athletic quarterback, thinking that they might plug and play them into the same offense. Mm-hmm. I think a better comp for him personally is Seattle. I think Seattle behind Geno for a year. Geno's kind of that same strong arm, is a little bit mobile, but isn't going to be a typical running quarterback, but is mobile. Will's that same guy and could step in toward the end of the year if Geno turns out to be Geno of old.
I got a spot for you, and this is fair. At 14, how about the New England Patriots?
Interesting, yeah. They didn't exactly give Mac Jones a ringing endorsement the other day, if you were reading anything about Belichick. So, yeah, that's an interesting pick right there. O'Brien things.
Yeah, the reason why is, I mean, let's face it. What kind of quarterback has destroyed the Patriots in the Bill Belichick era? The one he struggles defending the most. The mobile, big-armed quarterback. Josh Allen has destroyed New England over the last few years. Guys like that. Lamar Jackson has destroyed New England. So I think in Bill Belichick's mind, he wants to get himself one of those guys. He doesn't want the Tom Brady statue, stand in the pocket and throw guy. He wants a mobile guy who's tough and get out on the run and get you yards either way, rush or pass.
Yeah, I mean, but he's got Zappy, so don't forget.
Well, sure, but Zappy's like an undrafted guy that he has no draft capital. No reason that they're going to try to like.
No. Yeah, I actually like that spot a lot. I hadn't thought about them.
Okay, and then I'm just going down the list. I think he's a top 20 quarterback. He'll be in the top 20 of the draft. So maybe the Commanders, if they're not sold on Sammy.
And they're not.
And Tampa Bay at 19. I mean, Tampa Bay would be a logical, place for him to land as well, because they need a quarterback, unless you believe in Faker Mayfield, which, I'm pretty sure you don't.
I was going to say, I feel like you know how I feel about that. So, yeah, no. Those are good spots. Those are all good spots.
All right.
Wait, who was it on Washington again? I've totally forgotten. Who's Sammy?
Sam Howell.
Oh, then, yeah. No, that's a great spot for Will Levis.
Okay. All right, let's go to our number 3 quarterback. And you already said mine was Anthony Richardson from Florida, and you are correct.
Yeah.
I personally, I think everyone believes that Anthony Richardson will go somewhere in the top 4. If the Arizona Cardinals don't trade out of that pick for a team reaching for a third quarterback, but everyone assumes that Richardson will go either 3 or 4. I don't, John. I think he's too raw.
Too much of a project.
Too much of a project for him to go that high in the draft. I'm looking for him to go in the top 10, but not in the top 3 or 4. That's my personal feeling about him. However, he is the most athletic quarterback project we've ever seen at the combine. And it's not even close. I mean, he dominated every freaking event. He has a cannon arm like very few have. I mean, he can throw the ball 80 yards in the air. He's
And
fast.
not even blink.
He's so freakishly athletic, and that is the allure of Richardson. However, he is one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in FBS last year, period. He was one of the worst accuracy quarterbacks, and that is the number one trait in a quarterback that I look for. Are you accurate? I don't care if you can break 6 tackles, get out of the pocket, throw on the run. If you miss your target by 5 yards, then what's the fucking point?
Right.
What do you think? Tell me what your thoughts are on Anthony Richardson.
I don't think he's a top 5. Again, I think Levis will get drafted before him.
I don't think that.
I think it's somebody. I think he's going to slide. I think it's going to be a monumental slide. It's going to be one of those Aaron Rodgers sitting in the green room for way too long, going to keep sliding, and then somebody in the last third of the draft is going to get themselves an unbelievable athlete that they're going to make a gadget player for a year or two.
A gadget player. Wow. You're not sold on Anthony Richardson. That's what I'm hearing.
No, I'm not. He played at Florida, and he wasn't that good. Like, he had some highlight plays, but like you said, sometimes he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I mean, so many interceptions and just so bad. So, yeah, you could, turn him into a running quarterback where you run some plays for him, you get some packages for him. Maybe you put him with a Daboll with the Giants.
Yeah.
Because he did turn Josh Allen into an accurate quarterback, which he was not before. And then when Daboll left, Josh Allen actually was a little bit worse again last year on the interception. So I credit Daboll. So if I'm him, I go, okay, I know what to do with that quarterback. I can get me an Anthony Richardson and I can be really successful.
So just to go on further about his inaccuracy, Richardson last year completed 54% of his passes.
Jesus.
2,549 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Not staggering numbers, folks. On the ground, he rushed for 629 yards and 9 touchdowns. Very effective on the ground. But he's very, very inaccurate. A lot of scouts think he should have gone back and played another year to develop further his
I would have loved to have seen that. I completely agree with you. Also, his decision making is also a question. I mean, he had 9 interceptions, but there was like 3 others that could have been intercepted. Like that number could have been double-digit interceptions. His decision making is not good.
You are correct. That is true. Although, comp-wise, I would compare him to Josh Allen because he's very much built, athletic, inaccurate, just like Josh Allen was when he came out of Wyoming.
But Josh Allen came out of Wyoming. Anthony Richardson came out of Florida.
Right.
They had resources for him. Josh Allen came out of Wyoming. There's nobody there, right? Florida is still a big school in the SEC, and against top-notch defense, he didn't do very well with good resources. So I'm not sold on him. I'm not.
So we think he should go to a team where he can sit a year as well.
At least.
Yeah, probably 2 years would be great, but it's more realistic when you draft someone in the top 10 that you want to play him sooner. So I could see him sitting out half a year or a full year maybe, but any more than that, you got your fans,
I see Pete Carroll maybe taking a shot with Seattle.
You nailed it because Seattle has 2 picks in the first round, so they can use one of those picks to go get him, and he can sit behind Geno. And if Geno has a bad year, if they come out of the gates and they're not in contention, then you throw him out. You throw Richardson in there and let him go.
Some packages and let him play, and then work his way in, and
yeah. So I think that's a good target. Is Seattle's at 5, and they got that pick from Denver in the trade for in the quarterback swap there. So I could see him going at 5 to Seattle. I could see that. That's the soonest I think he'll go.
The worst thing that could happen to him is if he goes to Arizona.
Well, he's not going to go to Arizona, Johnny. They're not going to draft a quarterback.
I hope not. But can you imagine if they just, we don't believe in Kyler. We're going to pull the trigger and it would be the worst thing that could happen to him. So yeah, let's hope he slides. I think he should slide into the back half of the draft personally, but that's just me.
He won't. He'll still go in the top 10. Another place that he could end up, I hate to say this, is Chicago. They have the 9th pick. They have the 9th overall pick, And I don't think they would waste a pick. I think they're better served to get weaponry for Fields or build the offensive line there. But, I mean, maybe they take a guy like Richardson if he slides to 9.
I'm like you. I don't know that. I think they don't think they've given Fields enough weapons yet, and that he's shown enough talent. I mean, he wasn't bad last year. Like you said, I think he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I could be wrong about that, but he was pretty close to there.
You are correct.
Yeah, and so I think they'll give him another shot. I don't see the Bears.
I think it's very realistic that he slides past the top 10. Tennessee gets him at 11.
Yeah, Tennessee. Word out of Tennessee this week was that they're not happy with Hendon Hooker. He's kind of fallen out of favor already with that coaching staff, and so that's a real possibility.
It is a real possibility. And the Jets are right behind them at 13. They're going to have Rodgers for maybe a year or two.
Maybe.
It's glad to have a guy like Richardson waiting in the wings, just like Jordan Love. All right.
Aaron will love that.
Okay, my number 2 ain't your number 2, Johnny, because I know you have C.J. Stroud as your number 1.
I do.
He is my number 2.
Yeah.
Let's talk about C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
In 2022, just watching him play, to me, he had incredible touch. He could put the ball wherever he wanted to put it.
Yep.
Very accurate, tethering the ball, layering the ball with precise placement, right? He also has like subtle pocket movement.
Mm-hmm.
He feels pressure.
He can run when he has to.
Yeah, he moves really well in the pocket and then resets to make a good throw. There were a lot of clearly defined reads and throws at Ohio State where Stroud was working kind of in a clean pocket where he just had a lot of time to throw the ball, John. And so my worry is in the NFL when the pressure's coming and there are all these different blitz packages, is he going to be able to handle that pressure? Because when he was pressured, his stats go way down. Between him and Bryce, who is my number 1, Bryce destroyed him in that area, throwing under pressure. So I worry about Stroud. But other than that, C.J. Stroud impresses the hell out of me. He's very cool, calm, and collected. Tell me what you like and don't like about C.J. Stroud.
I think he's the most polished passer in this draft.
I agree.
He can throw everyone on the route tree. I know what you're saying about the pressure, and I thought that was definitely true his previous year. I thought the more you pressured him. But speaking of pressure, that guy comes up big in big-ass games. Rose Bowl 2 years ago. Last year against arguably one of the greatest defenses that college has seen in a long time in Georgia. That guy was a stud, and he was under pressure constantly. They should have won that game. I don't even want to get to it. It's going to hurt my heart to talk about. I think he makes reads. And you're right. He had some clean pockets. I mean, sue him. He played in the Big Ten with an unbelievably great Ohio State team. He should have big pockets. I think he's going to be a 15-year star in the NFL. And I mean, I'm talking all-pro, Pro Bowls, whoever gets this guy. And I think it should be Carolina because I think he better suits what Frank Reich likes to do. And I think that's why Carolina should draft him. That's why my pitch is to him. I hope it's not Houston because Houston has tended to ruin people. And I really don't want that to happen to my boy CJ Stroud. He's thicker. He could take punishment more. He can, and like you said, he can get out and run. He might not be as fast as Bryce and definitely not as fast as Richardson. Faster than Levis, obviously. But he's the most complete quarterback that we have in this draft. And it's not even close, in my opinion.
Do you have any comps to NFL quarterbacks that he reminds you of?
Gosh, that's a really great question. So, like a really his accuracy reminds me of Breeze. Okay, so it's like a compilation of quarterbacks. His movement ability is a little bit like Allen, like Josh Allen, but way more accurate. So it's a combination of these quarterbacks we put together. There's not anybody like him in the NFL. I don't think. I can't place one, and maybe you can jog me and tell me.
This might be unfair, but he reminds me of Deshaun Watson.
Oh,
a lot of Deshaun Watson. He's tough. He can stay. He can take hits. He can get out on the run. He's an accurate passer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's more accurate than Deshaun Watson was in college. But Deshaun Watson was a great
touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of like that comp. Just let me ask you a question, John, because here's what C.J. Stroud had at wide receiver in 2021. All right. He threw the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave.
That's
And in
unbelievable.
2022, he threw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka. So he has NFL talent all over the field. So, and he's got a clean pocket. So is he accurate and really good in college because he has amazing weaponry, or is he making these guys amazing because he's so accurate? Which one is it?
So I think it's just yes, like that, which is why I think he's going to be a good pro quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He puts the ball where he's supposed to, and he's got great talent that goes and gets it where they're supposed to. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what you're going to get in the NFL, right? It's not like he had all these great receivers who had to make these like crazy big catches and like huge, like, you know what I mean? Like he put the ball exactly where you should put a ball for talent like that to get them on the run, to get them going where they're going. I don't think it matters who you put out there. He's going to hit them where they're at, where they need to be. Actually, that's what I thought he was really good at, was leading people to the open area.
Right.
I thought he was really good at that.
Okay. That's good. I think CJ Stroud's going to be, like you said, a long NFL veteran quarterback. Like he's good. I don't know if he's going to be great. He's going to be really good. And that's okay. You know, like maybe there isn't a great quarterback coming out of this draft, but it's
I think
quite
there
admirable.
I think there are. I think this is a really good quarterback draft, actually. I like this better than I've liked a quarterback draft in a while.
So Stroud's statistics last year were ridiculous. He had 3,688 yards, 41 touchdowns to 6 picks.
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible numbers, John.
I mean, listen, and Jigba wasn't even there. He was supposed to be their number one wide receiver. You know, Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of came out of nowhere in the Rose Bowl the year before and then just took it on through the year. So he was fantastic. The other guy was kind of he wasn't even supposed to do much this year, and so he just kind of came on. So when you talk about the stars he threw to the year before, he didn't have as much of that this last year. I think he made them stars as opposed to having all the great talent. So I think that kind of answers your question.
All right. So if he doesn't go to Carolina, he's going to Houston. It's one of the
For
two.
sure. He's one of the two.
Yeah, he's one of the two. So let's talk about the guy. That will be the other guy that goes in the top two. And on most lists, he's number 2. On mine, I like him number 1. Bryce Young. Bryce Young out of Alabama. Bryce Young completed 65% of his passes for 3,328 yards, 32 touchdowns, 5 picks. And he also ran in 4 more touchdowns. So let me just say what I like and what I don't like about Bryce Young, and then you can come at me, John.
Okay.
6 feet tall. He's around 200 pounds when the combine hit. Second all-time in Alabama in passing yards and TDs, playing in only 2 seasons. So he's got statistics up the butt, you know. He has pretty good arm strength, exceptional accuracy, awareness, mobility, poise, everything you want in an NFL quarterback. That's Bryce Young. He often moves into space to deliver the ball and make timely, spectacular second reaction plays, which I really like about him. His only real weakness to me is the fact that he's small. He's short and he's got a small frame. He's about the size of Drew Brees, but he has less density in his body. He's lighter than Drew Brees.
Yeah, he's just
worried about that.
He reminds me of Tua, like a more talented Tua, right? But he's Tua. And Tua, we saw what happened to him this year. He got hit real hard a couple of times, missed half the games. He's not played a full season yet since he's been in the NFL. So Bryce Young, smaller, I think. He might be just a tinge taller, but I think he's more slender and more slender build. Gosh, he worries me. He worries me so much. And that really is the only reason I have Stroud over him, because I think they comp with their playmaking ability. Bryce is a bit better of a runner. Stroud's a bit better of a thrower, right? So I think they kind of match up that way. But I picked Stroud over him, over Young, because I trust Stroud to not get hurt. I've seen him take giant hits and play through it. Bryce Young is just a tiny little fella. He's just a wee lad.
Well, we've seen, Kyler Murray, who's even smaller in stature than Bryce Young. And Kyler Murray, up until last year where he tore his ACL running in open space, let's be real, he was able to avoid getting hit, sliding early, getting out of the pocket. And so he avoided big contact. So I feel like Bryce Young could do that because he is mobile. He's not as mobile as
I don't know if I agree with you, though. Like, he got hit and hurt about halfway through his first 2 seasons. Fantastic coming out of the gate, and then crap coming down.
He did injure his shoulder. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a little bit like Kyler. Like, yeah, he's going to come out and he's going to be gangbusters. He gets hit that one bad time. I don't know how he's going to be when he goes down. So that's actually a great comp for me, and why I'm pretty much I would stay away from him as much, because he's like Tua and Kyler, and neither of those guys have played a full year.
So my comps, I have a combo between Tua Tagovailoa and Drew Brees. He's super accurate. And like you said, he's got a slender frame like Tua. And both Tua and Drew Brees are very accurate in the pocket. But what I like so much about Bryce Young is his clutchness. Comes through when he need it. His ability, he's so smart. It's like he has a sixth sense. When he's in the pocket and he feels it breaking down, he knows where to slide out of the way or run out of the pocket. And he's not looking to run the ball when he runs out of the pocket. He's looking to make a big play down the field. That's what I love about Bryce Young. That is why he's my number one. That is why he's my number one.
I can see that. And that's where he does remind me of Breeze a lot. Like, not big, but figures out a way to get into those passing lanes where you can see between the linemen. And you're right. His subtle movement, and sometimes not so subtle movement in the pocket when it's starting to collapse, is fantastic. And his ability to throw on the run is just butter. Like, he's a dime guy. I just worry about him getting hurt.
Yeah, and if he ends up in Houston, he's not going to have a lot of weaponry at wide receiver unless they grab a receiver for him as well, which is possible. But here are the guys he threw to in 2021. Jameson Williams and John Mechie. And boy, both those guys were really, really good. And then in 2022, he was throwing to guys named Jermaine Burton and Ja'Cory Brooks, who are good receivers, not NFL prospects at this time. And he still was able to put up monster numbers with less weaponry this year. That's why I was kind of convinced, like, this guy's good, man. He's really good. Playing against top talent, I mean, in that conference, like, I really like what I see. And honestly, John, he has a better, stronger arm than your boy CJ Stroud. Stroud, one of his weaknesses is his arm strength, believe it or not. As big as he is, his arm strength is not better than average.
I don't know if I agree with that, but okay.
I mean, that's what the scouts are saying. That's what the scouts are saying.
He didn't have to. His guys were always open, 10, 15 yards down the field. He'll always have to throw the bombs. And when he did, he hit them every single time.
You're right. I can't argue with you on that.
Yeah.
Tell us in the comments, guys, what you think. Who's your top 5 prospects at quarterback position? Yeah. Throw some comments and tell us what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with John? What's your thoughts? What do you think, John?
Let's do it. I want to hear from you. I want to hear anything from you. I want some more comments. I want some apps. I want some tweets. I want some comments on this video. Let's go. We want some suggestions too. Give us some. What do you guys want to see us do? Within reason. Let's not get carried away.
I know what I want to see us do, John. So I was reminiscing a couple days ago, just thinking about all the guys that came through for me for fantasy championships. It's like some legendary seasons, and I thought it'd be fun to have just a segment of some fantasy legends. Look back in our past and find guys that had ridiculous seasons that we happen to have on our roster. So, John, we're gonna do fantasy legends. I'm gonna let you start. Tell me a guy that you'll forever love because he was just a monster for you on your roster.
This he's my favorite because he was my probably my biggest championship. Nah, that might not have been my biggest championship year, but it was a great championship year. It was a year where I was in control for most of the season at least. Mm-hmm. And it was a rookie that kind of nobody was expecting. And I drafted him a little high, kind of like I did Pierce this year. That didn't work out as well. Edgerrin James. Edgerrin James's rookie year just went off. He made everybody forget about Marshall Faulk and just run hard, catch the ball. Every week was just killing it in fantasy points. Was the number one running back that year in fantasy points. And I'll never forget it. Like, to me, it's my all-time greatest draft pick because I got him in like the third round, I think, where I took him as my first running back, and nobody was doing that. Nobody was even talking about him. So,
yeah, I remember that. That was a good pick. You already mentioned the guy I was going to announce for my first fantasy legend. Back in 2000, this was my first ever fantasy football championship. I had Marshall Faulk on the Rams. My favorite player, and he had 1,000 yards rushing, 81 catches, 26 touchdowns, and he almost also had 1,000 yards receiving, John.
I remember that. Yeah.
One of the greatest fantasy football seasons we've ever seen at the running back position. He was on my team. And, 2001, the following year, I didn't have him, but he did get 1,000 yards receiving and 1,000 yards rushing. And he was the first back to do that. That was amazing. So, Marshall Faulk, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. John, on your second.
He's a little fella. You may have heard of him. When he's not, spanking his kids with twitches, he's recovering from a catastrophic knee injury to come back the next year and lead the league in rushing. Also caught the ball. Ridiculous number of touchdowns. Adrian Peterson, he's second on my list of just, I like drafting a guy where everybody's like, I'm kind of worried, but I don't always do it because, like Saquon, I didn't because I didn't believe in him. But for some reason, I had that Johnny Ballgame gut feeling about Adrian Peterson. I wasn't wrong.
Where'd you take him?
I still had to take him pretty early because he's AP, right? So I think
I remember. You took him third. I believe it was third overall, and I said, John, you're crazy. When you took him, I said, John, he's not going to be 100%. He has a torn ACL. And up until that time in football, anyone that had come off a torn ACL had a subpar season the next season. Right? And John's like, I don't care. He's gonna go off. And he led the league in rushing. Johnny Ballgame. Yeah. All right. 2019. Christian McCaffrey. I had him in Dynasty. I was picking mid-second round, and John was picking one pick ahead of me in the second round on the way back. And I called him. I said, John, you want to switch positions? That way I could have that first chance at Christian McCaffrey. That was where I wanted. But John said, nah, I'm good where I'm at. And I think, John, you took McCaffrey there in the second round. But in my other leagues, I took McCaffrey in every league, every other league. So Christian McCaffrey had 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, 116 catches, John, records for the running back position, and 19 touchdowns. I'll never forget that season. I won multiple championships.
I'm not going to mention him then because you just mentioned him. So he was really good that year too. All right, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path because I had 2 years, and actually now that I think about it, this might have been the same year, where I had an unlikely championship team, and it was the combination of two defenses and an unlikely quarterback and wide receiver. And so I'm going to go over the defenses first, and then I'll give you the quarterback and wide receiver. But the defenses were the Rams and the Titans. And somehow this was the year actually Chuck coined Johnny Ballgame gut feeling. Because every week I would have to pick between those two defenses. And they were both just ridiculous that year. You're talking about turnovers, sacks. We had a lot of points in that league for touchdowns, safeties, kick returns for touchdowns. Yeah. And every single week I somehow managed to pick the one of those two teams that did that. And they were like, they didn't always alternate. So sometimes I would take the same team twice. They would go off twice. Then I would pick another one. And then it was just an unbelievable year. In that same year, when I have those defenses going off, I picked up off of waiver wires, Steve Berline for quarterback and Mushi Muhammad, because my I can't remember who my starters were that year, both got injured, and I picked up both of these guys. And that combination, I went wire to wire that year, and just completely dominated. Like, you guys, actually, I remember the league getting mad at me. Like, I remember for some reason you guys were always mad. Like, God, I can't believe you picked the right defense again.
Johnny ball game.
It was just one of those weird years. So yeah, that to me was, I will never forget that year. Again, picking up. That's why the waiver wire is so important, by the way, which you'll see us and give our tips later. Always keep your eyes open on the waiver wire. I might have drafted Mushi, but I think he was super late, and then I picked up Berline as a backup quarterback, just on a whim. And then he ends up going off that year. So, yeah.
Funny you mentioned the waiver wire, John. And because of that, I just changed the order of the guys I was going to talk about. I got to talk about this guy next because, like you, I picked him up off the waiver wire. This was in 2011. Marshawn Lynch was in his second year in Seattle. He was having a terrible season in the first 8 weeks, and somebody dropped him. They dropped a starting running back on the waiver wire. I went and was like, I'll pick him up, I'm in second to last. I got nothing to lose. I don't care. Let me just see what this guy can do. And Marshawn Lynch, here are his next 8 weeks. 135 yards and a touchdown, 109 yards and a touchdown, 88 yards and a touchdown, 111 yards, 148 yards and 2 touchdowns, 42 yards and 2 touchdowns, 107 yards and a touchdown, and then he finished the season with 86 yards in one half of football. And Chucky went from second to last to taking second, which paid out very handsomely in that league.
Was it Tony that dropped him? Did I just out Tony? Was it him or was it out?
No. I don't remember who it was because it wasn't in our league. It was in a different league. It was in the league.
Oh, I'm saying it was ours.
Yeah, and man, but whoever dropped him, thank you so much.
Yeah, that was nice.
I believe that was the year he did the earthquake run against the Saints in the playoffs. I believe that was the same year.
Yeah, I remember him just going off in the second half of that year. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
My last guy that I have on my list is a guy who's a star now, right? 3 years ago, he was a rookie, and I drafted him, and he didn't do anything the first 3 or 4 weeks, and I actually at one point dropped him. No one picked him up, and I claimed him back in the third week, and then starting week 4 on, helped me win a head-to-head championship, and that was Justin Jefferson. And it was weird. I remember talking about him before the year, and I was like, God, I love this guy. I think he's just going to go off. He's going to take over for Thielen. And there was kind of a lukewarm sentiment about him, just because rookie receivers, don't tend to do that great. And so when I drafted him, I was all excited, and then he did zilch for the first 2 weeks, and I was like, I need a guy. So I dropped him. Third week he did okay. I picked him up after that going, he might come back around. So let me just stash him. And then week 4 on, he was Justin Jefferson.
He was an animal.
He was.
All right. I want to go out with a blaze of glory here. This was my most dominant fantasy football season ever. And it was the season in 2013. Peyton Manning was with the Broncos. This was his second year with the Broncos. He'd come off the surgery, the fusion surgery in his neck, and he had a pretty good year the year before in Denver. And then they picked up Wes Welker. And when they did that, I said, this guy's going to set NFL records next year. I'm picking him first in every freaking league. And I told the guy, I said, if I get the first pick, because we draw for numbers, I said, if I get the first pick, I'm picking Peyton Manning. And he says, bullshit. No, you're not. I said, go ahead, pick number 1 for me. So I picked number 1, John. And I told him, I'm taking Peyton Manning. And at the draft, I took Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning threw for 5,477 yards, NFL record, and 55 passing touchdowns. Oh, and by the way, I also drafted Demaryius Thomas and tight end Julius Thomas in the last round. And I had him in Dynasty, and in the 2 leagues I was in, I had him in every single league. I won all the leagues. Every league I was in, I won, John.
Domination. That's a good one.
It was fantastic. I love Peyton Manning forever.
Yeah, as you should.
As I should.
The sheriff.
He is the sheriff. That is correct. Okay, Johnny, freaking ball game. I want to thank John.
Good show, Fantasy Reaper. Good show.
All right. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button. Consider subscribing. By the way, we're also, besides being on YouTube, we're also on Rumble. We're on your local podcast, so check Apple Podcasts, etc. Give us a 5-star rating if you wouldn't mind. Don't forget to subscribe because we do this every week. Right, Johnny?
You got to be here. And I'm telling you what, man, we're going to have draft shows. Then we're going to get into the summer camp shows. Then we're going to get into draft tips for your draft, for fantasy draft. Like, you want to subscribe. You want to know when we're coming because we're coming at you with good stuff, good content every week.
And we'll have our, top 20 wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks, and it's going to be fun. And it's all fun.
We're gonna give you by division who you want in each of the teams for each division. That's what we do for you. You're welcome.
We're going to break them all down. Every team, we're going to tell you what you're looking at for fantasy purposes. We're going to do it all. And it begins in 2 weeks when we find out where all these fools are going to be drafted, maybe.
Oh, I love it.
Super excited.
Yes.
Johnny Ballgame. I am the Fantasy Reaper. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Aloha.
Tony, Royce, we'll see you guys.
Tony will be back next week.
Royce may never again.